Have you ever played a game that made you realize, wow, I wish there were more types of games like this? This weekend I stayed up all night at my friend's house playing one of those games, and it was Prey Moon Crash. Moon Crash isn't even a full game. It's a DLC developed for Prey, released in 2017. Honestly, I didn't even know it was coming out, my friend just happened to have been playing it. It reminds me of a throwback game, and amidst the downpour of multiplayer games today, it makes me realize how much I miss the good old-fashioned single-player game. Because being a single-player gamer in 2018 can be challenging. Some say it's a time of having to scrounge for a good single-player game, that they are going the way of the dodo. But if you look hard enough, there are a few gems out there. You just have to get past everything else in the way. Over the past few years, the gaming industry has gotten really good at churning out a lot of games. I look left and right, and I see all my friends with party hats on playing multiplayer games all day. Most of them are smooching on Fortnite, PUBG, CSGO, Rainbow Six Siege, something like that. For every good single-player campaign out there, there seems to be 5 or 6 online multiplayer free games eagerly waiting to take their shelf space. Some of them are good, others not so much. Many breed a culture of copycatting with the likes of The Culling 2, Radical Heights, Metal Gear Survive, squeezing the juices until the fruit runs dry. It can leave the gaming environment feeling suffocating, and gamers might want to turn to a single-player game to avoid breathing it all in. Most multiplayer games are competitive, designed to get you latched on to the endless stretches of player progression, trophies, achievements, cosmetics, leaderboards, and all that stuff, drip-feeding you content over time and commitment. Hoping to fix it you immediately has to open your mouth wide for more. Hopefully a little bit of your wallet as well. It's a race to keep you interested amidst the deluge of gaming's other distractions. Some of those games fall flat on their asses, spitting out not enough content to justify the price tag. The games that do well, on the other hand, are taking strides to be progressive, like Fortnite, showering players with rewards and things to do as they continue to evolve their game. We participate in these games until we exhaust everything in the title. We earn all the goodies, we soak in all the new content, we become the best we can be. Then we get bored though, and we move on. It's the seasonality of online video games, because most games cannot last forever. Unless the game bucks the new flavor of the month, the Battle Pass trend, designed to latch us on a little bit longer and pick up some extra cash in the process. The Battle Pass, or as I like to call it, the Mini Season Pass, is a clever new addition that allows players of many popular games including Fortnite, PUBG, Paladins, etc. to opt in for a chunk of custom game content designed around shelling out more stuff to you, like costumes, skins, boosters, over time, anything you could possibly think of. They get more money, you get more content. Whether that is truly new or just a mirage, begs the question. But no one can deny that these temporary seasons are probably the next evolution of DLC content for the multiplayer gaming enthusiast, and one could imagine they will only become more extravagant over time, especially in the waning hours of gaming's most deteriorating player bases. And then you've got the other subset of games on the other side, like League of Legends. They have their own communities, and they continue to dominate the market too, just in a different way. You take a look over that giant fence though, and you'll see a whole other subset of gamers doing something different. Playing games alone. Assuming you've played all of last year's best single-player games, then chances are you've moved on to 2018 hoping for new experiences. Sometimes, great single-player games can pop out of nowhere, or in some cases, they're literal ghosts. You try to find them, you search for them, but you may end up empty-handed. And some of those games you think you might want may be turning into different animals altogether. Let's talk about a few good single-player games available today, starting with Moon Crash. Some people refer to Prey as a 4-5-1 game, which is kind of a throwback to the way that many do-it-yourself games were made a long time ago. If you toss Deus Ex, Thief, Dishonored, Half-Life, and maybe Bioshock into a blender, you might get yourself a Prey smoothie. You play as Peter, a spy and a hacker monitoring a secret moon base for an evil corporation. Some unknown tragedy befell the facility, and to figure out what happened, you gotta enter a simulation of sorts to live out the events pre-disaster. It's kind of a game within a game. Arcane's painstaking environmental storytelling takes the game far beyond the story though, allowing Peter to utilize a looking glass visor to live out the memories of several personnel on the station before the disaster took place, which is a really cool idea, and each playable character has their own abilities. Your goal is to escape the moon-based simulation with all 5 characters in 5 different scenarios. The cool thing about Moon Crash is that the world is one world. It's shared among all characters, so if you consume resources with your first character, they won't be there when you play through the game next. You can see how this might get pretty challenging when you get to your 5th member and there's really nothing left for you to survive with. If you die, the simulation resets a la a roguelike game. The world gets redrawn and you start all over. But all is not lost. You earn points through your runs to buy weapons and items to help you in your next one, so it's got this whole risk-reward thing happening. I really liked Mooncrash. There's not much in the way of environmental variety, the 5 characters aren't really fleshed out that well, and it does definitely get repetitive, but just the uniqueness to it all was enough to make me want to play through to the end. It's games like Mooncrash that provide me a good distraction from all the bumbling buzz of the multiplayer fever prevalent in the market today, and I don't have to worry about getting a season pass, always online DRM bullcrap, toxicity, or staying glued to my monitor. I could just play the game like it used to be. One of the problems though with a game like Prey is that it's easily misunderstood. Prey isn't a linear game. It's not an open world game either. It's a first-person hybrid survival shooting action-adventure puzzle simulator style game. The story is different. In fact, you play the game so differently than other games that it's hard to compare it to pretty much anything. It takes time to warm up to, as well, and it's even worth playing through again after you've beaten it. So is the problem of being a primarily single-player gamer in 2018 the fact that you've always got to find that next big game? Because often that results in some giant lull periods. Do a search for such games in 2018 and you'll find a few, although you may have already played them. The wait between good single-player games, and I mean really good AAA single-player games, can be really long, but it's often worth the wait. This game was the single-player action game that basically threw a big middle finger to the haters of the industry and the claim that you can't turn a profit from an expensive AAA single-player game. Like Detroit Become Human, exclusivity corners off these experiences though to many gamers, like yellow tape at a crime scene or red carpets at a movie premiere. You've gotta love it, and you gotta hate it, as it promotes healthy competition for the industry, which makes our games better, but also sanctions huge groups of players from enjoying these games. It can also spur some argumentation among loyalist groups, fighting for the right to defend their favorite platform. So it's not all good, and it's not all bad. Exclusivity, though, is one of the issues for single-player games, as many popular ones are, well, single-player. Zelda, Mario, God of War, Nier, Bloodborne, etc. So even if you want to, you might not be able to play every single AAA single-player game, which can further compound the issue of having to wait for the next big game. The rest of 2018 holds many other single-player games to look forward to, from Shadow of the Tomb Raider and Red Dead Redemption 2's single-player campaign to Biomutant, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and indie games like the full release of Dead Cells next month or Guacamelee 2. So it's not hard to find a good single-player game, it's just hard to find them consistently. But let's turn our attention as well to the single-player modes that are now blended in with multiplayer components and encased in a live gaming experience, which is the direction of many AAA single-player games right now, where you're not really sure if you're playing a single-player game or not, because it's a quote-unquote shared world, and you got people popping in out of nowhere, or you've got a MMO-style shared questing system via instancing, or maybe it's a conversion of what the game was all about in the first place, or a new direction, such as Fallout 76, where the game is moving to a much more survival and multiplayer realm, or a franchise like Call of Duty that once leaned on single-player experiences now moving in the direction of Battle Royale and the flavor of the month. Lumped into many of these new directions are hosts of other trends that hitch along for the ride, and you may deem them good or bad. Some of these include, but are not limited to, making games bigger, not better. Most likely to have it being a selling point to slap on the back of the box, the effects microtransactions have on single-player video game pacing, forced online-only games with DRM and mandatory social systems requiring some form of person-to-game connectivity, and the front-loading problem, where game makers put all the cool stuff in the game early to make sure you don't refund the game, sometimes leaving the end game completely lacking. These are some of the issues that sometimes get in the way of a good single-player game, or are the catalyst for transforming once iconic single-player franchises into evolving social, mostly online-only experiences. And a lot of people don't want that. Single-player games are great to play with family and friends on a couch. They allow us to often replace the competitive side of gaming with the explorative side, to go on a quest that takes us far away from our real life, as to paint a new picture for what could have been possible if we maybe lived in a different time period. To take our time and get to know a character like Geralt, to walk on the moon, to fight an evil bad dude, or throw a fireball from our hand. It's more often than not for the joy of the experience and living in an impossible world, not the necessity of being the best, coming in first or topping a leaderboard. Many have sunk into the ocean, some have survived, while others have been converted to more practical and mainstream application, and the rest have been reconstructed for monetary reasons. Being a single-player gamer in 2018 is full of challenges, not the least of which is finding a good game to play consistently. Single-player games are often self-contained as well, small dosage products that are best enjoyed played through once, so we often finish them long before we find the next one we want to play. So we often turn towards the indie game or the low-budget gem, but in all honesty, many of us still crave that big AAA single-player game. Perhaps the odd blockbuster single-player game is meant to be rare these days, I guess, making it all the more memorable when these days finally come around. And I think many of us have become used to or numb to seeing some of those AAA franchises turned over to the live gaming side to fuel some unknown monetary agendas. But the ones that avoid that treatment prove to this industry that they are indeed some of the best and most excellent adventures that one can partake in. Not every game has to come with a catch, a bigger world, a service-based online application, an in-game store, or a 2-year development plan post-release to fill in the missing content that may have been ripped out at launch for resale. Good single-player games are out there, you just gotta do a little digging. And you gotta tell those video game makers to keep them that way. Thanks for watching, guys, I really appreciate it. This video was made possible by you, the community, and the generous support of my Patreon as well, so any way you can support the channel, I really appreciate it. And you guys have a fantastic day. We'll see you guys in our next video.